Welcome back to the episode here on the Heart and Hustle podcast. Today's guest, she spent over 2 decades in higher ed, and then she walked away to lead a nonprofit that was completely rooted in joy. What would make someone leave everything familiar to start over? Dr. Kathy, what is it?
Well, it's a very complex answer to that question. But you're right. I spent 25 years in higher education, and about a year and a half ago, I made the decision to leave higher ed and pivot to a career as president and CEO of Glenmeadow, which is a senior living community in Western Massachusetts. The decision wasn't as easy as it sounds. I spent a lot of time investing in higher education, and I came to a point professionally where I was at a crossroads and decided whether I wanted to try something new. And senior living is a growth industry right now, and I decided that I wanted to take the chance and try moving my skills from working with college students to working with older adults.
And what is the feeling now? Like you walk away from higher ed and now you're in the space of working with our elderlies. Is it you wish you would have done this sooner, or are you just happy? Like, what is the feelings that you have now?
I'm so happy to be here, and I would love to say that there are moments when I say, yeah, I wish I had done this 10 years ago, but I wouldn't be the same person that I am today if I had left higher ed earlier. I think everything happens when it is meant to, and I'm really grateful that the universe made it possible for me to join Glenmeadow when I did.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Usually our career path, there's a reason that we had to go through that route because, as you mentioned, we wouldn't be where we're at today. What are some of the things that you take from higher ed that you implement now into the space of home care?
Yeah, so senior living is senior living is interesting because there are more parallels with higher education than you might
Mm.
imagine. We're just working with an age group that's at the opposite end of the psychosocial continuum, but many of the functions of a college and of a senior living community are the same. So, you talk about admissions in higher education. Well, we have sales and marketing. Both organizations, both industries have dining. There's some activity based or program based division, student life or wellness in our case. Philanthropy is philanthropy, the facility is the facility, a budget is a budget. So there are a lot of transferable skills from higher education, but at the end of the day, it's really about helping to create the kind of experience that our residents are looking for. And that's not altogether different from wanting to create the academic experience that college students are looking for.
Love that, Dr. Kathy. And one of the other things that I love is what you mentioned when we first chatted, which was your purpose is to cultivate joy, right?
Yeah.
But I can only imagine that there's seasons where we feel a little bit burnt out. Can you kind of go back to those? How do you find joy in the space where you feel a little bit burnt out?
Well, I certainly am not feeling burned out in senior living, but
Love
in
it.
any moment of stress, whether I was working in higher education or now working in senior living, when it feels like all of the busyness is overtaking, I go back to the reason that we are here. It's time for me to get out of my office, to have one less meeting and go down and spend some time with our residents. Just be in conversation with the people whose homes we have the privilege of coming to work at every day. That is incredibly grounding for me because it's so easy to get caught up in the minutia of a to-do list or the strategic plan this or the budget that.
Mm.
But when you go back to the reason that we are all here, it's about our residents. And the more I connect with them, the more it reignites for me the joy in doing this work. And I found the very same thing to be true in higher education. In those moments where things were getting really stressful, I'd go interact with some students and feel a lot differently about the day.
I love it. Now, I was actually just seeing And I'm pretty sure you guys experienced this. I was actually on a Facebook group here locally, and they were looking for people that had so many talents, whether it was an artist or because I guess they were trying to plan out for July. So anyone that wanted to volunteer their time. I thought that was so cool. What are some of the things that you guys are doing for the seniors at your current location that people probably wouldn't even expect?
Yeah, it's interesting that the average age of our residents is 88. And I would
Wow.
say it's a very young 88 because our
Hmm.
residents are incredibly busy during the day. I mean, I'm sure you've talked to retired people who are more
Hmm.
busy when they're retired than they ever were working. And it's the same thing here. Our residents are really busy, whether it's doing participating in the programming that we're offering every day. They're still volunteering in the community. Several of them are still working. So the day-to-day experience of our residents is as complex as they want it to be ultimately. But one of the areas that we are prioritizing first and foremost is wellness. So physical wellness, social wellness, intellectual wellness, spiritual wellness. How can we create experiences that feed our residents in those areas? So that's one piece of the work that we're doing. Another piece that's incredibly important to me and to our residents is intergenerational programming. They love to have opportunities to interact with people at other ends of the age spectrum. So we talk about intergenerational, that could be a 40-year-old interacting with an 80-year-old. It could also mean, in one of the partnerships that we have, is we have preschool and early childhood age students come over once a month and interact with our residents in some kind of activity. And that kind of engagement is so energizing, both for our residents, for the students who get to come visit them, and for the rest of us who get to stand around and watch what happens.
That's so cool. And I'm a big believer that whatever you're doing, there's something in it for you, that there's something that we're taking away from it. What are you taking away from working with, as you said, an average of an 88-year-old? There's wisdom there, but what are you taking away from them?
There is such wisdom here, and part of what I have taken away in the last 18 months is, first of all, everybody has a story, and every story is valuable. We have residents who were former judges. We have residents who taught English abroad. We have residents who were captains of industry. And it's such a joy to hear those stories and to
Hmm.
know that they had such a different set of experiences than we did coming up. And I just love to sit and have conversations with our residents, and they enjoy those conversations, I hope, as much as I do. But I think one of my biggest takeaways is pace. So I'm someone who has always been described as a purposeful walker. I can't sneak up on anybody. I'm always wearing high heels that you can hear coming down the hallway. But in working with this population, I've literally had to slow down. And it's been so wonderful for me to not worry about rushing from point A to point B and getting all caught up in my
Hmm.
busyness, that it gives me more opportunities to engage with the residents who I come upon walking down the hallway, because sometimes it takes our residents a little bit longer to get from point A to point B. And what kind of model would I be setting if I just kind of zoom by them in the hallway? But it's really an opportunity for me to slow down and have a conversation and not be so worried about getting from point A to point B. And it seems like a really small thing, but at the end of the day, I've had some really enriching moments in those hallway conversations. And it reminds me that there are more important things than plowing through a to-do list on any given day.
There used to be a saying, I'm probably going to butcher this, but it was slow down and I don't remember what I'm just not going to butcher
It's
it.
something like go slow to go far or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
something along
I
those
think
lines.
that might be a book.
And but it is true, right? Like
It
sometimes you really gotta slow down and just see things from a different perspective. Really get to take things in, really get to listen, because as a leader, there is a lot of tough decisions. There is a lot of go, 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 go. But as sometimes as leaders, we also have to just slow down and remember who we are and just kind of be present, because so many times there's just so many moving parts.
You're so right, and that's one element of me making the shift from higher education to senior living, is that this was all new for me. I didn't know the language, I
Hmm.
didn't know all the acronyms people were using, and I didn't know what the rhythms of the industry were. So for me coming in, I had to slow down. I had to ask the question of, can you help me understand what that means? I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll figure it out. So taking the time to ask those questions, not assume that I know everything and that I
Hmm.
have the answer, has provided, I hope it's provided my team with that freedom to take a pause too and say, okay, what else can I learn about a particular situation? Or we don't need to do things the way we've always done them, and we can try something new. So I hope that in that slowing down, we've been able to take a different perspective on the work that we're doing because we can look at a problem or a situation intentionally rather than just zooming through it in the way that we always have.
I like that. I like that. Do you have a story, recent story maybe, from Glenmeadow, whether it's big or small, that really reminded you that this work isn't just operational, but it's very scarce?
Yeah, we have so many operational challenges, like so many organizations, and we can't possibly take them all on at the
Hmm.
same time. But some of the most important work that we're doing right now is behind the scenes work that our residents may not even know is happening, but it ultimately makes their experience more efficient. One of the examples that I talk about frequently is moving from paper processes to digital ones, and it seems like a no-brainer on some level, but it was a big operational shift for us, and our team took to it as well as they possibly could have, and they took it on in the middle of an $11.5 million renovation as well. So there was an awful lot happening, but the opportunity from a leadership perspective to help them clear out some of the noise and to help them focus is really what my focus was, to keep me out of the weeds of all of the change that was happening and ensure that my team felt supported in the work that they were doing.
That's good. I actually want to kind of bring it back to the residents.
Mhm.
When I speak to other leaders that are in this space, they always talk about the story that someone wanted to do, whether they wanted to go flying, they wanted to go skydiving, and some things are not possible, but finding unique ways to make it possible. So mentioned there was someone that wanted to go shoot a bear,
Mm.
right? And the caregiver was like, "You want to shoot a bear? Like, you think you can shoot a bear?" He's like, "Well, not right now because my body is a little achy and things like that." So she helped him get to a point where he can go shoot a bear. And not only was he able to shoot a bear, he was able to shoot a bear 3 different times. So the first time he didn't get it, the second time he didn't get it, the third time he did, and the third time, after the third time, I think like weeks later, he passed away.
Mm.
But every time, which was with one of his kids, so he got to spend quality time with each of those kids before he
That's
passed
great.
away. He got to do what he wanted. He was happy, right? He
That's
died
great.
happy, as we would say. What are some of the stories that you have that there's something that someone wanted to do and you guys
Yeah.
had to get really creative, think outside the box?
Well, one experience that we had recently, was, so we've got, the majority, probably 70-75% of our residents are women. And coming up, they didn't have an opportunity to engage in a lot of exercise or sport because of the perceived limitations
Yeah.
on women at the time. And we have a wonderful AHL hockey team in the area. And they came over recently with their mascot and brought over a small hockey goal and some plastic hockey sticks, and the joy on the face of some of our residents at having an opportunity to just take a slap shot into the goal was truly phenomenal. And it's all of these different roads coming together in a way that we focus on physical wellness. So the place to be at 10 o'clock
Hmm.
at Glenmeadow is in the exercise class. So because of the strength and the flexibility and the core strength and the balance that our residents are developing in those classes, they're able to confidently take a slap shot into a goal with the mascot of the Springfield Thunderbirds. So it's really a wonderful example of, I always wanted to, and now I have the opportunity to, still in a safe environment, not out on the ice with skates on, but that ability to kind of do something that you were always told that you couldn't do.
Hmm. Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying the podcast, we first want to say thank you. And we also just want to give you a little insight of what we're up to at Francis. Some don't even realize that we're working with organizations to help them use AI to create that real human communication experiences, whether that's actually supporting your families, those patients, or the entire community. We're actually creating tech that connects. Check it out, francis.ai. I love it. And it comes back to the word joy, right? The joy that I can only imagine you have just seeing that happen. Like, oh my God, this
Yeah.
is so cool to see. Because, one day, and it's a conversation we don't have often, is one day we will be that person.
Mhm.
One day there's something that we wanted to do and we didn't have the time. And we hope that we're in care that people are willing to make it happen for us,
Right.
right, at all costs. And I think that's what's so cool. And I think people don't understand about the home care, and not just home care, but even just being at an actual facility, that there is a lot of love and there's a lot of care, and there's always that bad stigma that they're not people are not treated fairly, or people, or even people aren't paid, and all these different things. But there's so much good that's really happening, and we have to have these conversations.
Absolutely, and we have taken it as a challenge for our organization to redefine aging. And you're right. The stigma around getting older is that at some point you fade into the background, and you maybe
Hmm.
move into a community like Glenmeadow, and not venture out into the wider community that often. And that's just not the experience of our residents. There's actually some recent research that has pushed back the definition of old by about 20 years. So 80 is the new 60, and the way that we engage with our older adults is really telling in a lot of ways. And we don't want our residents to feel like this is time to play small at all. These are our older adults who are finding a new gear in living in community at Glenmeadow. And that piece of it is so critical, because as you age and you're living at home, that social isolation becomes a real health risk. So by moving into a community like Glenmeadow, you have people of a similar age around you who are experiencing a similar stage in life. And a number of our residents have said, I like the fact that I'm not alone. And that Glenmeadow becomes your family, even if you have
Hmm.
sons, daughters, grandchildren who may be geographically distributed, you have a Glenmeadow family as well. And that really helps our residents to stay vibrant and to thrive and to keep doing the things that they love to do.
We're such in a cool space. I mean, what you're doing to say you kind of almost took the leap of faith. You're loving it. I think that's amazing. Then in this space as well, where in higher ed, you're probably already kind of experiencing technology,
Mhm.
but now we're kind of having to experience technology again, all over again, right? How do we implement this to make sense? So people are using VRs to give experiences, but we also have AI. And I know last time we spoke, you're not anti AI, you're not all in, but you're kind of in that middle space. But if you actually had to talk to your future self and think about AI and VR fully kind of embedded into these organizations, what do you hope really never changes about that human side of senior healthcare? I don't think it will ever change, but what's one thing that you feel you really don't want to see change?
It's such a great question, and the human interaction that is so central to the work that we do, I hope never changes. That there is a trend of some sorts that there are robots delivering dinners in dining rooms in senior living communities, and I don't want that for Glenmeadow, because the connection between our staff and our residents is something that you can't manufacture in AI. You can't manufacture in a robot. So I think AI has a place in senior living, but I don't think it will ever replace the human factor in the work that we do. I think it can be a great help to us on the operational side. As you've suggested, it can be a great experience for our residents through VR and other AI capabilities to experience something that they've not been able to experience before. Go take that vacation to Italy that you've never
Hmm.
perhaps been able to take, and do it with VR glasses on. Or
Yeah.
experience a Van Gogh exhibit or whatever it happens to be. Um, there's a place for it, but it just can't replace the people. And
Hmm.
that's what I continually hear from my peers in other organizations as well, that we're Glenmeadow is comparatively a small nonprofit, and that means a great deal to our residents, because they know that they can walk up a flight of stairs or take an elevator to the second floor and walk into my office and ask me a question. And as organizations get larger and larger and technology starts to overtake organizations, that one-on-one interaction becomes that much more difficult.
Yeah, and like you said, I don't see it ever replacing empathy and compassion.
No.
And just there's something about I love talking to people, and even virtual is cool, but that in-person conversation,
Yeah.
the energy hits different. So I can't see me just talking to her in person and just feel the same way, right? When I
Right.
know there's no heartbeat behind it.
Right. Right.
And probably didn't have the living experience. I think that's what's really cool is when you mentioned just I used to work for the airline, so I used to
Mhm.
always have these people call in like, "Hey, I can't book this reservation online," or "Hey, I can't do this," and I'll be on the phone for a whole hour with them, and it would just be some of the most funniest conversations, especially when you have husband and wife just bickering back and forth, but you could see the love. You could see that they're just
Absolutely.
joking, and they're like 60, 70 years old. I'm like, I love it. I never mind being on the conversation with
Right.
them for an hour and just walk them through because
Right.
one, I see that they were just wanting to learn something different, but sometimes just willing to have conversations. As you kind of mentioned, they at one point they were parents, at one point they were kids, at one point they were working, and then all of a sudden it's like now they're just there. So it's sometimes they just want to have a conversation with anybody that would be willing to listen. And
One
I
of
was definitely that one willing to listen.
one of my colleagues like to say that working at Glenmeadow is like working with 150 grandparents every day. And I also view it as it's like working with 150 consultants every day because
Okay, that's good.
everybody has an opinion on
Yeah.
how you should do what you do, and I love it. And as I said, we have such a variety of professional experiences here. I am in no way vain enough to think that I have all the answers, and if I can have a conversation over dinner or over lunch with a resident who gives us an idea to do something different or better, I'm absolutely going to listen. But there are so many different ways of looking at the work that we do. I can't assume that it's just me and my staff who have all the answers.
Have you come across another nonprofit leader
Have I come
yet?
across nonprofit leaders here? Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And they know where the boundaries are. They're not trying to do my job, but they've
Yeah.
been here, so they get it.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you've been in a position, you always want to give a little insight. But yeah, as you mentioned, understand where that boundary and times are different. To see
Right.
what they probably just want to know what you're doing nowadays to say like, wow, times has changed. Um, and to think about that, Glenmeadow is a 140-year-old
Mhm.
organization, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what we come across last time I
That's right.
spoke to you. But you're also not the new kid on the block. Like a 140-year organization, you're kind of a fresher face to the organization. Did you ever feel that you had that moment that what did I get myself into? Did that ever come across?
No, I don't know that I've ever
No,
asked
that's so
myself
good.
that specifically of, oh gosh, what did I do? Um, because Glenmeadow is a strong organization. It's got a great mission. It's got a great finances. It's got a great support base. So I can't ever say so far that I've said, oh gosh, what did I get myself into? Um, More often than not, it's am I doing this history justice? And I recognize that I stand on the shoulders of all who came before me, and
Hmm.
and it's my role to steward the organization for however long I have the privilege of being in this job. Um, I think perhaps what concerned me more early on is what the staff and the residents were thinking when I was announced. It's like, okay, I'm sure there's a reason here, but I don't quite see it yet. And so early on, it was really about helping the residents and the staff get to know me,
Hmm.
and what I bring to the organization, as opposed to me thinking too seriously about, did I make the right decision?
And I can only imagine there had to be that mindset shift as well. I mean, you're walking away from probably a well-resourced university system into a more leaner
Mhm.
operation. Was there like that hard mindset shift to think a little differently? I know we talked about slowing it down a little bit. What else comes with stepping in from something that's very high, well-organized resources, data, all this good stuff to probably go into nonprofit where there may be a little lack of that?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely a different level of scale and sophistication in some ways. I have found that I miss having a full IT department on speed dial, and to have the depth in some of those areas. But ultimately, I've always considered myself a generalist who can figure out most anything, and I would say the same is true for a lot of my staff, that if something needs to get done, we're going to figure out how to do it, and we don't have too much of a silo mindset in a counterproductive way, that if something needs to be done, we'll figure it out. We may not have unlimited resources, but I have always found that those conditions actually make for better decision making, because you have to be really clear about why you've chosen to spend the resources that you're spending, or why you're hiring for the position that you're hiring. So we don't have the luxury of being frivolous, and I would say that most of the colleges and universities I worked for were in the same position. We were well resourced, but in the words of a former CFO I worked with, he always said, we can do anything we want, just not everything we want.
Correct. Correct. Now I'm a big believer in that, just being part of a nonprofit myself, but I also think it's really, I want to go back to what you mentioned because a lot of leaders face this as you go into a new organization. People don't know you, so now you have to build trust with that staff, the community that's been around for decades.
Mhm.
How did you start? Is it just having conversations? Is it meetings? Is it understanding what people's talents were? What was those first things you thought about? Okay, I need to really start to build just a rapport.
I think the answer to that question is different for the residents, for residents' families, and for our staff. So for the residents, they want to know who I am as a person.
Hmm.
So providing or finding different ways to engage with the residents, whether it's the monthly kind of town hall meeting that we have. I have office hours. I have small resident gatherings that I do every quarter. Ultimately, they want to know who I am as a person, and it's important for me, that they know my family, and
Hmm.
my two dogs are regular visitors to Glenmeadow. But that's what they have as a priority. They assume that the board did a good job and hired somebody who can manage the balance sheet and manage the staff, but they want to know who I am as a person.
I
The
love
the
that.
staff, on the other hand, I think came to it from, is this a person that I'm going to want to work with? And again, transparency is incredibly important for any leader, and it's something that I take very seriously. And as much as I want them to know me as a person, they also need to know who I am as a leader. So I actually took a page out of some tech startups, um, and I put together a user's guide to Kathy Martin. And I framed it around, here are things that are important to me. Here are the values that I lead with. Here's what you can expect from me in terms of what the rhythms of my day usually are. What kind of communication methods do I prefer? Because they didn't know who I was before I came
Hmm.
into this role. So I wanted to demystify that a little bit. And I didn't do it out of an overdeveloped sense of self-importance or ego. I just wanted to let them know, here's how I show up to work every day. And here are the values that guide me. And that has been a good starting point for conversation. But I think the most important thing for the staff is just to get out of my office and spend time with them.
I love that. I love that user guide. That's actually very smart. And it's so important as you mentioned as a leader to make sure people are seen, heard, that there's empathy, that there's understanding. And I just actually had a moment. I mean, I did this pure out of how I would want to be treated, right? So I have an assistant and fairly new, and I just didn't want her to feel, because a lot of it is virtual nowadays, everything's virtual. So I said, hey, I want to make sure we have these conversations where we can see each other's faces, because I don't want you to think that you're just of service to me. You're truly an asset. Without you, this doesn't happen,
Absolutely.
right? And just telling her, like, always, I'm always going to be honest. This is, and just kind of giving her all these insights, and even me being a coach for others and working with young adults, and she's young, she's 22 years old. I want her to know that she has the same ability to have conversation with me, and there's no
Absolutely.
charge to it, because you are a part of my team. So of course I'm going to listen to you. Of course I'm going to invest in you, because I see that if I invest in you, you're going to be able to do things better for yourself, but also better for the team.
Right.
So it's we have to come across like that. Like, as leaders, yeah, we have to make the hard decisions to maybe cut a couple of different things that are just not worth it. That doesn't make sense, because sometimes things are just in place just because it's comfortable.
Right.
But I love that you had this guide, and like you mentioned, it wasn't an ego thing. It was just me kind of setting the standard and hope that everyone could see where I'm coming from. So I love that. I love how you just created that. I'm
Yeah.
taking that,
What
by the way.
one other thing that we did. I've been a fan of Clifton Strengths since about 2009,
Mm.
and coming in to Glenmeadow, I've introduced it to our staff as well as a tool to build self-awareness, as a tool for professional development, as a tool for communication. So we have about probably 35, 36 of our staff who have done Clifton Strengths, and we use it as a professional development tool. And it brings me back in some ways to my role as an educator, because I can talk about how we use it as a tool to work better together. And it gives
Mm.
me a chance to teach a little bit about it as well. And it's been a really interesting tool for us to have as a way to get to know everybody better, not just me.
That's so good. Is there anything that you had to unlearn since stepping into elder care that's made you more of a human leader?
Yeah, I think one of the things for me is that I don't need to do all the things. And coming out of a role as chief of staff in higher education, where doing all the things was pretty much my job. But I understand and recognize now very differently that me stepping in and doing something that another member of my team is more than capable of doing, or more than capable than me of doing, doesn't honor the trust I have in them. So for me to take a step back and say, is this something that I really need to do, has been very important for me, so that I can ensure that my team is focused on what they can focus on, and not having me get in the way, frankly. So that's a part of it. But I also think that I've been very open with asking for feedback,
That's good.
and that can be new for
Hmm.
some staff members as well. And I didn't really understand enough in the beginning how anxiety provoking that can be for staff who may not have ever been asked for their opinion before.
Hmm.
So it's forced me to moderate some of those conversations in that way. Um, but I hope that my staff will see me as a human leader, that the most important thing that any leader can do is admit their mistakes, or admit when they don't know something. And I'm very comfortable doing both of those things at Glenmeadow. So I hope that it encourages others to take a risk and try something new. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, we try something else.
Doctor, that's how I know you're a good leader, because not a lot of leaders will say, yeah, I'm here for feedback. Tell me when I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Tell me if there's a different way that you felt it could be done. I'm all for it, because as leaders, we're not the smartest in the room. We're just understand how to lead people.
Right.
So we want to work with the smartest people in the room. So we
Correct.
want to work with some of the creative people in the room. So even just as I mentioned, this young girl, I told her, I said, hey, I'm willing to listen to you. If you feel like, Efrain, that wasn't good, or hey, let's get more creative, like, I'm all for it.
Hmm.
Like let's try it because I don't have all the answers.
Right.
And we can get some more of our young leaders in here. I think that's always a plus because we get to also see things from a different perspective. The ways that they've learned had been different. The things that, technology for them is very different. So I always ask her, "Do you understand social media?" Because even though I may understand social media, she probably knows a little bit better than me.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to lean on to that other person that
Right.
knows more. I'm not here trying to feel like I need to dictate the whole show. So
Right.
it goes to show in your leadership skills that it's not about you. It's never been about us for a very long time.
Hmm.
In the space that we in higher education, it wasn't about the job that you were doing. It's about the people that you were impacting.
Correct.
Currently today, it's not about the job that you're doing. It's about the elderly that we're impacting.
Hmm.
The families that are just in awe that you guys are taking care of their families. Like there's a cycle there. So I actually love it. But let's talk about for someone who's listening but never stepped into a senior living community. That's a lot of people, right? I can imagine. What's your call to them today?
Senior living is one of those areas where you don't talk about until you're faced with a need.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's an aging parent, an aging spouse, grandparent, whoever is in your circle who might need some extra assistance, I would encourage people at any age to visit a senior living community and find out what it's all about. One of the things that we are doing at Glenmeadow is finding ways to invite the wider community into Glenmeadow, to demystify it a little bit, to
Mm-hmm.
introduce some of our residents, to introduce our staff, to introduce our gorgeous community. And if we can help those who may need our services someday to feel more comfortable about walking in that front door, that's a success. And we may have someone who comes to a program to hear a speaker today who may think in 6 months, in 6 years, I'm going to give Glenmeadow a call. Then we've done our job.
Yeah.
That um, but I would also say to anyone who is thinking about it, definitely make that phone call. Go volunteer at a senior living community. We are always looking for people to help us do the things that we do. And I mentioned earlier the importance of that social interaction for our residents, and that's true in every kind of community like Glenmeadow.
So good. And I didn't even think about like if you really want to know about the senior, facility, just volunteer. Right? You get to see the people. You get to see how they are behind the scenes. You get to see the type of people, just the people that are there. How people are being treated. They didn't even think about that. Just go volunteer. It's as easy as
Volunteer.
that.
We have a number of college students who have done their internships here, or are planning to do an internship. And it's one of the things that I really value about the generation that's coming up into the workforce is they want to work with older adults. And
Hmm.
in many circumstances, it's an experience with a grandparent that has helped them to focus their career goals. But given my background in higher education, it's likely and probably not a surprise to anybody that I want to help college students or even those who don't have a college degree find a way to make their living in senior living because it's incredibly rewarding. And with the number of people who are turning 65 and older, we're going to need the additional options in our workforce.
So you pretty much bring both your babies together.
Absolutely.
This is
Absolutely.
amazing.
And there's such great opportunities for partnerships. One of the things that our residents really, really want is more intellectual engagement. Can we partner with local colleges and universities to have faculty or students come over and give presentations? Absolutely. It is a really, it's a logical partnership.
No, I love it. So I get you right into the hot seat. I know we've been spending some time here. So the blind question from the last leader to you was, what belief about leadership still actually ground you today, the same way it did when you were just starting out?
Hmm.
I don't know, tough question.
It is a tough question. The thing that I always come back to is teamwork. That you are as good as the people you surround yourself with, and that none of us
Hmm.
can do this work alone. You hire good people into good positions. The best thing that you can do is let them do their jobs, but always know that you are there to support them. At the end of the day, I still think of myself as a coach. That my job is, if I can take the sport metaphor a little bit further, my job is to make sure that the team has the skills and the fitness to do what they need to do and feel empowered to make in-game decisions based on
Hmm.
the conditions that they're presented with. Right? That's what any coach wants for their team, and that's what I want for my staff too. So for me, that foundational leadership tenet is teamwork.
Love that. And what is your blind question to the next leader here on the Heart Hustle?
Yeah, the question that I would have is what is something on your resume? Is sorry, let me try that again. What is something that is not on your resume that has shaped who you are?
That is actually a really good question, Dr. Kathy. That is a really good question. Okay. I've never heard that one. So I'm going to definitely make sure we ask that one.
Okay.
Well, I want to say thank you. If someone wanted to connect with you, if someone wanted to just check out more about the facility and the organization that you're a part of, where can they go? Where can they find you?
Best place to go is www.glenmeadow.org. And certainly you can find me on LinkedIn, or my email address is on the website as well.
Well, Dr. Kathy, I thank you so much for your time. It was good. It was so good. We could do this longer, but I know we both got things to do today. You got people to go see probably, more stories to hear, things like that.
Without a
So
doubt.
thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, guys. If you guys are still watching, don't forget to like, comment, and share, because that's the only way that we get some of these resources, these stories, and get people to understand that senior living is happening to all of us. And we don't want to be too late to the party. We want to know what's actually happening and finding where we're going to fit in. So volunteer your time. There's plenty of senior living cares wherever you're located that are more than willing to give you 5, 10 hours to just have conversations, get to learn somebody else's story. I think it's
Absolutely.
really great. So Dr. Kathy, we thank you. Guys, we'll catch you guys on the next one. This is Efrain. This is Dr. Kathy. Bye.
Thank you.